We live in a time where masculinity is shamed and men don't know what it means to be a man. As a pastor and counselor, I've spent the better part of my life equipping and training others. My goal with this show is to translate my hard-earned experience into tools and tactics to help you become stronger as a man. This is the BraveCo podcast. I'm your host, Jason Valenzuela. All right, BraveCo men, welcome back to the BraveCo podcast. This week's guest is my very good friend, Gabe Valenzuela. Gabe, thanks for coming on.
Well, thank you for having me.
Yeah.
It's kind of cool. So,
dude.
I watch your stuff. Every now and then I get a glimpse. Every now and then I get a glimpse.
Bro, you don't watch my stuff.
I don't watch all of your stuff. I watch some of your stuff, and I've seen your stuff. So
you just do it to critique me.
I will say, no. I will say when I got the invite, I was like, can you double check? I did tell Ari, who helps me out. I was like, hey, can you double check and make sure he sent that to the right person? Because I don't know. He made an oops.
You're so dumb.
Maybe.
Here's the thing. You and I have grown up together. So and when I say that, I don't mean like 0 to 20. I mean like 21 to 43. I'm 43 years old. Like we've grown up together in the same house.
Yeah. I mean, I'm 45, a couple years older.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, honestly, like with my wife, you grew up together.
Well, I was going to bring that up.
We can bring it up later or now.
No, it's a good point. So
but, I mean, your family.
Yeah, I haven't even introduced you fully yet.
Okay.
So this is Gabe Valenzuela, and Gabe oversees BSSM second year, and also you are our events director, overseer, whatever.
Yeah, I help to lead it.
Yeah,
there's a director, and I help to lead that.
Yeah, and so all the events that happen at Bethel, Gabe is now overseeing those as well, and so it's super cool. I'm going to get into talking about your wife in a minute, but the reason why I wanted to bring you on here is one, because we have so much history. You're one of my favorite guys to be around and to talk with. But two, you're one of the greatest developers of people in our environment, which is saying a lot because we have a lot of really good people in our environment to develop people.
Yeah.
But you're at the top of that list. And so you're also a father. You have really great kids. You know, you've been a husband for a long time. And you're just one of those guys that when I think about, man, who are the men at Bethel Church that other guys look up to and other guys want to follow, it's you, bro.
Thanks.
Yeah.
I appreciate that.
Yeah. And so anyways, you're a real BraveCo man.
I feel that way today, especially. So it's good.
Yeah. So we joke about this a lot, but
first of all, we did, just to go back to your point, like 2 years older. But I moved here when I was to Reading, not to attend Bethel, but I moved in town when I was 18.
Yeah.
So, and I think I met you. You were still in Weaverville.
Yeah, that's true.
When I met you. So we've known each other for a while.
Yeah.
Pre-kid, like we've known each other for a while.
Yeah, a long time. And the thing is that really, I kind of feel like in a roundabout way, you owe me a lot of things.
Okay.
No, I'm not.
Let's talk through that.
Yeah, I'm about to. So growing up in Weaverville was a really unique experience for me. A small town. It was really fun. But there was this girl that I really liked.
Yeah.
And my dad, when I was young, right? Like my dad didn't have a good dad, so he was like kind of learning everything for the first time with me, really, with the son. And I remember my dad being like, hey, if you like a girl, you can take her out, and that was fun,
Sure.
And so I started taking Leah on dates when I was like 11.
I think you were her first date.
Probably was.
Ever. I think that's true.
Probably remember taking her with my family, right? With my parents to the Destruction Derby up there in Weaverville. Oh,
bro,
those derbies are legit.
The 4th of July weekend.
Yeah.
I've been to a few of those.
Yeah, my dad gave me like $20 so I could buy cotton candy and stuff.
It's awesome.
It didn't last very long. She eventually moved on to greener grass.
Well,
the good news is I never broke her
She
heart.
had a couple pastors before me, I think, so, to be honest. So. greener grass. I was like, yeah, I definitely was a few pastures later in that deal, but it all worked out. I mean,
Yeah.
you set her up for success.
Yeah,
Do
I
you know what I
did,
mean?
dude. I did.
Like, yeah, what more can we ask for? You
I
know,
feel
just
like I showed her how a man should treat her, you know?
okay, okay. You were like 12. Give me a break. I showed her how a man should be. Uh-huh. Okay.
Yeah, I was 12, literally.
No, but I've talked to her about it.
Uh,
Yeah, she has fond memories
you
of
know what? I look at Leah as like, she's one of my favorite people. And you know how you have those people that you've just been with your whole entire life? She feels like family. And I love her
yeah,
so
well, we
much.
treat each other that way. I mean, honestly, like that's a word I think we toss around all the time, you know, and but there's few people that really do feel that way. Like, hey,
Yeah.
I'll, get up in the middle of the night, do anything,
Yeah.
take my stuff, here's my car, here's my kids, like all that stuff.
It's what's fun though, is that as much as I was woven into your, marriage story with Leah.
Okay. Wow. All right.
I know.
Yeah.
Some people feel like it's a stretch, but I don't. I feel like there's a direct correlation.
story, yeah.
Yeah. You were definitely a key role in me getting married to Lauren.
That's true. You're welcome, by the way.
So just really quick on that, because not everyone will know what we're talking about. And you'll feel like you're on the outside, but everyone wants to be on the inside. When I was in school of ministry as an overseer, I had gone through a divorce and I was, of course, raising kids and single and all that. And Lauren was in first year, my now wife, when I was an overseer. And so, there I was up on stage preaching, my biceps were bulging, and she was just, honestly, I think I caught her so off guard,
Yeah.
She was like, I got to get me a man like that.
I mean, I'm sure that's not exactly how it went.
That's not how she ever shares it. But I really know what was going on inside of her. Anyways, Lauren was dabbling with another guy, kind of, messing around. And then in second
messing
year,
around's not quite the right word, but
dabbling, we'll leave it at that.
Sure.
She was in another pasture like your wife was. And then when she went to second year, you were overseeing second year. At one point you had suggested maybe she takes an interest in me.
Yeah.
Do you remember that?
I mean, I kind of, yes and no. Like I remember lots of different conversations, and then conversations.
Well, I could tell you
in the middle of some of those things, like, hey, there's a great person. I mean, Lauren was stellar, right? Let's just be clear. Like she came to the environment. Yeah. She was, loved everybody.
5'10".
Sure. Yeah.
Stellar.
Yeah. Okay. So my stellar, your stellar, different, but yeah, we'll go with yours. Yeah. She was beautiful.
Yeah.
In the environment. Yeah. Everybody, she was a great person. Everyone was like, wow, who's that? And you included.
Well, sure. I was definitely hunting her down. And I remember, us having a couple conversations about like, dang, dude, Lauren Axel, that girl's, I would date her. And so you had a conversation with her where you'd said, hey, Lauren, what do you think about Jay? Because she looked at you like a spiritual father.
Yeah.
And
still does, by the way. I just want you to.
No, it's cool.
Okay.
That's why I call you dad. But she looked at you like a spiritual father at that, in this season and that season, but especially that season, because she was so young in maturity.
She was growing, just needed dad. Yeah.
And you had, people are just fast forwarding through this podcast right now. Now they're laughing. And you had said, hey, what do you think about Jay? And she was like, God, so Lauren really likes safety and she likes predictability. And in my world was everything besides that, safety and predictability at that time, especially to her, because the divorce and the kids and all that. And you said, well, he's an awesome guy and somebody's going to date him. Somebody's going to marry that guy. And that planted the seed, dude. So probably in reality, listen, you can pick whatever BraveCo merch you want.
Get whatever hat I want out of that deal. Yeah.
Now that I think about it.
Yeah, that was the seed. And yeah. And I think that was definitely the start of a journey, but
yeah,
the Lord works itself out, and
it does.
And so,
you've been here in this environment for such a long time, and honestly, it's rare that a person gets to grow up into an environment and become a leader, for starters. Because, and I say that because it's often that you grow up in an environment and then the environment send you to someplace else for you to become a leader, because it's like, what's the verse that a prophet,
Doesn't, yeah. Like doesn't have honor in his own house.
yeah, it doesn't have honor in his own home. It's really hard to grow up in a house and then have people grow and change with you, right? Because we see your mistakes, we see your immaturity, we see all your dumb stuff, and then eventually that environment goes, yeah, we want you to lead us.
That's challenging.
It's a big deal, yeah.
Yeah, it's really. I think it's hard. Like you have to have leaders in the environment who are dads, not leaders. You have to have dads in the environment.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah. So whoever's leading the environment needs to be a father, not just because of their age or whatever, but have that heart of a dad, because that's the only way that that someone will see you potentially and have that, have the heart for you to grow beyond them.
Dude, that's a really good point that I haven't thought about a lot, because if you're not a father, then the guys coming up in rank often feel like a threat.
Yeah.
But with a dad, you are his success story.
100%.
Yeah.
With a healthy dad.
With a healthy,
yeah, with a healthy dad.
Yeah.
And I think you need that. And I think you have to have a short memory as a son.
Yeah.
Oddly enough. And, but even for me, like, most people don't know, but I spent 3 years in Weaverville.
Yeah, take us through just a little bit of your journey coming to school, because I know that you were in the first class of BSSM.
First class ever BSSM, but I came here just to get out of my hometown, really. And looking back,
was that in Mexico?
No, it was not in Mexico.
If people are listening to this, Gabe's Mexican, and so
yeah,
we always,
and I crack Mexican jokes all the time, so it's not like I just do it a lot.
Yeah,
but I'm very American, to be fair. So
Mexican American.
Anyway. Lots of jokes in there. But I came here, honestly, I got out of high school and I didn't want to die in the town I was raised in, honestly. So, I graduated in 96. So I looked on a map, like an old fold out map. And I was like, where's the furthest I can go?
Wow. Yeah.
That's honest what happened. I was in my bedroom. I remember it distinctly.
Wow.
Where's the furthest I could go? And I had an uncle who lived in Redding. And it was the furthest I could go in California and go to college and still pay like in-state tuition, and I have to pay out-of-state tuition.
Oh yeah, that's a good thing.
And it was just the furthest I could find, honestly. Looking back, you're like, that's the Lord. But in the moment, I just wanted not to live, where I lived for 18 years of my life.
Yeah.
And so I came here, and, that raise up a child in the way they should go is a really true deal. I grew up going to church, and I can't always say I grew up following the Lord, but I definitely grew up in church.
Yeah.
And so, just kind of being in the environment and still going to church here. And, I got to Bethel about 6 months after, Bill and Benny moved their family here. So I kind of experienced the change and the transition. I grew up very Pentecostal. So a little bit of the crazy at Bethel was pretty normal.
The rolling around and barking you felt like home.
Yeah, barking was different, but it was just, so some of that was normal to me. And so I just kind of kept doing that.
Yeah.
And then I had a couple years of college, and honestly, I just thought, you know what, I'm going to do school. They just started a school of ministry. Felt like, again, one of those decisions that probably in the moment I was like, I just need a break from college.
Yeah.
And my parents were, their whole life was, you're going to go to school. So really it was just, I just didn't want to do chemistry and biology anymore. And I thought it can't be as hard as, I didn't like math.
Yeah, totally.
Really? So I was like, well, it's got school in the name.
Yeah.
So I said, I'll take a year and I'll do school of ministry. It's still school. And then I'll go back to college. And I had a kind of a plan, and the Lord kind of changed all that in the middle. And so somewhere in that middle road of school of ministry, I was volunteering in youth group. There was no internships or third-year students back then. It was, I volunteered and realized that I think this is what I'm supposed to give my life to. And so we did. But you're 20 years old. So there's not a ton of options that you have. So, I was doing youth group stuff because the only people that think anything at 20 or 17-year-olds. Do you know what I mean?
True.
So that's true. So I had one option.
Was that with Banning?
Yeah.
Yeah.
With Banning. So, and honestly, I set my whole life up. I knew I wanted to do ministry. So I really did set my whole life up to do ministry. So I got a job where I worked I think my starting time was like 5:30 or 6 in the morning, but it was a part-time job. So I would go in the morning, get off by noon. I'd go home, take a shower. I'd be in youth department at 1, and I would work from 1 to 5.
Yeah.
And I would just do that over and over again. And so, you know, anything ministry that I could do, I was doing it, bro. I was doing sozos on Fridays
Right.
for people because they wouldn't have no transformation center.
Yeah.
People would just show up on a Friday night, and we would use the BCS classrooms.
Yeah.
And I was doing that because they said I could. So if you said I could do ministry, I was homeless people on Saturday. I was just doing whatever I could do because I knew that I was called to ministry, but I didn't know what that looked like. I was just going to do some stuff. So,
you know what's so crazy is we get this question asked a lot because of the school and the students and stuff, and even church. But people always go like, "Man, how do I not just find my purpose, but like, how do I get to like where Bill's at and Chris is at?" And it's like, dude, you got to grind.
Yeah. You got to say yes to a few things. So
there's not a lot of cheat codes to actually becoming. There's not a lot of cheat codes to stepping into what God's called you to do at a high level. It's one thing to be like, and really like it's one thing to do it at a really low level. And I'm not despising that. I'm saying, but like, if you want to become, if you're going, man, I want to whatever, be a really great businessman. I want to be a really great preacher. I want to be a really anointed, deliverance person. Like it's all the hours in time and effort, energy of serving. Like that is the cheat code. You got to put in the time.
Yeah. It's a ton of time and a ton of mistakes.
Yeah.
To be honest.
It's true.
And you work through it. Like even, people, I want to preach like Bill. I'm like, that's 5 sermons a week for 40 years.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
It's
I don't
true.
even know who has that. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, your dad preaches one day, he's like 3 times, and that's like twice a week he's doing that.
Yeah.
So I'm like, yeah, it's a challenge, but you got to say yes to something. Like for me, the big deal is, I talk to school cause I'm in second year, I'll be honest, and it's not like even a humble thing. It's just honest, right? Like, I'm not the most gifted guy in the room in most rooms I go to. I think sometimes I am now, if I'm honest, in certain areas, but that's a lot of years, right?
Yeah.
But in School of Ministry, you would look at my class and I wouldn't be in the top half of that class. When it comes to like, is he gifted? Is he anointed?
Yeah.
Is he well liked? I might be in the top well liked, but I'm not, my homework wasn't amazing and my preaching wasn't amazing, all that stuff. I think the Lord, if I can be honest, like the Lord somewhere around there goes, well, he doesn't quit. So we might as well just use him.
He's so faithful. We got to do something with him.
And that's what happened to me. Like my first ministry gig was a youth pastor.
Yeah.
And I thought I have arrived.
Yeah.
But it was a youth pastor because Banning couldn't help but hire anybody else. I was there. He would turn around and I'm in the office.
Yeah.
Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, like I'm stacking chairs at youth group. I'm doing stuff. So,
dude, making yourself indispensable is one of the greatest things that you can do to give yourself opportunities that you would have never got otherwise.
Sure.
And I tell people that all the time. They're like, how do I get time with you? Or how do I get time? Like, how do I get a spiritual father? People ask me this all the time, guys. Like this is my answer. Make yourself indispensable. So show up. It's what I did with Danny, right? Danny was teaching a class. I was there. If there was counseling to be done, I'm doing it.
I do that now.
Yeah.
I don't think people understand, like, I'm a dad now, right? But my own kids, and then people at church sometimes will be like, hey, you're a spiritual father, but we have spiritual dad. I find reasons to ask questions. I find reasons to go, teach me, help me. Even if I think I know the answer, I still go knock on someone's door and go, hey, I'm about to make this decision. What do you think?
Yeah.
And now, after however many years, I'm like, yeah, I'm 60, 70%.
Yeah.
What was in my head is what comes out.
Dude,
but then there's another 30,
yeah.
40% that even now, I'll go in with Dan and Dan's like, gives me a totally separate answer from what I thought I was going to do. And I'm like, dang it, he's right.
But the partnership is what you really wanted, right? It's like, I get your answer on this thing, But more than anything, if I get dad's partnership,
Yeah.
that's the biggest piece. And you got that through serving, through being there. Like it's just, man, because so many men didn't grow up in a home with a dad that was, you know, saying, hey, come around. Hey, do this thing with me. Hey, go do this thing. They've never learned the model, right? Like this is the model. And my dad did that for me. And so it was a really natural thing to go do that with Danny and to go do that with Bill and just to like make myself of use to them wherever they're at, whenever they're at. And eventually they adopt you because, well, you're the guy that's always there.
Oh, I'm just around. My list of spiritual dads is unfair.
It's true.
If I'm honest. Like, I don't even tell students or say to people because I'm like, it just feels like I'm bragging.
Yeah.
And I'm not. I think I just caught it in a space where some of those guys weren't famous Christians. And I was just around all the time. And I asked a crap ton of questions. Mm-hmm. And, you know, Danny taught me, probably like you, like, I remember when Danny, for the first time, Danny said, hey, I have a counseling appointment on Tuesday. Why don't you come and hang out with me? That came after 6-7 months of I'm a youth pastor and I'm knocking on Danny's door in the admin building. Literally, it's closed all the time. I just go in there and knock on the door. Then I'm like, hey, I have this girl and she's sleeping with somebody. What do I do about that?
What do I do?
And he's, you know, he walked me through it, talked me through it. And then 2 days later, I'm like, hey, I got a kid. He's like doing this stuff. What should I do about that? And, you know, 6-7 months of that, Danny was like, look, here's what we're going to do. You're going to show up to one of my counseling sessions and you're going to sit there and you're going to not talk and you're going to listen. And I did that for 3 or 4 months. Yeah. And I would just sit there and listen to him do it. And then one day out of the blue, I'm in this session with Danny because I'm just learning. And he goes, Gabe, what would you do? And it caught me off guard. And I was like, and I gave an answer. And he's like, yep, that's good. And then he kept, you know, and the person doing the counseling was probably like, what is this 23-year-old knucklehead telling me what to do? I'm married, you know, but that's how I learned with Danny. But you're just around all the time.
Yeah. I think one of the challenging things growing up in an environment like ours is that there's so much feedback, and not for everyone. I wouldn't say that everyone in our environment experiences a lot of feedback, but when I talk about in our environment, I'm mostly talking about you and me, because you're in the office with Dan, you're in the office with Banning and my dad, and pretty much like they say, crap rolls downhill. And definitely in that environment, like you're going to get so much feedback. Like, what was that like for you? What did that do for you?
Like it was hard for me early on. It still kind of is, if I'm really honest. Like I'm not, I mean, you wouldn't, if you're listening to the podcast, you wouldn't know this, but you know, you're around these amazing people and they are amazing. Yeah. But some of those guys are just wired to like get things done and fight along the way. Like a good fight for them is like they wake up in the morning and they're just like, let's
ready to fight.
And they enjoy it. And that's how they, you know, like you have to have those people in the environment if you're going to actually break through and pursue and do that stuff. But I'm not that guy. And, you know, Banning almost killed me as a youth pastor. And I'm not saying this in a negative way. Like we've talked through this and we joke about it now, but I'm like, I remember going into Danny's office going, fire me, because I can't do it with him. We're just wired so different, you know. And then Danny manned me up a little bit, and Danny was like, you know,
he would tell you what God told Job: brace yourself like a man.
Honest, I remember that moment. I don't know if this is helpful to anybody, but I went in there to Danny's office and I was like, I can't work with him, you know. And Danny looked at me and said, how's your marriage? And I was married for a couple of years at the time, maybe. And I was like, what are you talking about? He's like, how's your marriage? And I'm like, marriage is fine. And I said, but I'm not here to talk about marriage. I'm here to talk about Banning, because I'm hating my life. And he said, you and Leah fight? This is honest, like word for the conversation. And I was like, yeah. He's like, what do you fight about? I was like, I don't know. If we fight, like what couples fight about? He's like what? And I said, I don't know. We sometimes fight about where we're going to go to dinner. And sometimes, you know, we'll like drive around for half an hour before we decide, and it's kind of annoying. Yeah, stuff like that. It was like, this is what he told me. He said, have you ever woken up in the middle of the night and think to yourself, I've ruined my life? And I'm like, about my marriage? He said, yeah. I said, no. I've never done that one time. He said, well, here's the deal. Your marriage is too easy and God has to grow you. And he's only going to do it probably in 2 ways.
Dude.
It's going to be your marriage or it's going to be your work. And he said, your marriage will never grow you the way you need to grow.
Wow.
Work will only do that because you married Leah Johnson.
Yes.
And that marriage won't grow you the way you need to. Get ready to put in work. Now get your big boy pants on, get your rear end out of my office, and go back to work. That's literally the conversation I had with Danny.
Amazing.
That me at like 23.
Yeah.
So I did.
Best conversation you could have had.
Oh, yeah. So I did. And I went back in there and sucked it up. And, and then honestly, I changed my attitude and it got great.
Yeah.
And me and Banning are amazing. To this day, we're amazing, but
yeah,
it got awesome.
Yeah. When did you go to Weaverville?
A year after it got awesome.
Oh.
It was 2 years of suck and a year of, man, I'm killing. And I thought it was amazing. It was doing really well. And I got a phone call from your dad, come see me, which is that's the worst phone call I could ever get.
Yeah.
And I'm nervous. And he's like, I want to send you to Weaverville. We're bringing Eric back and I want you to go to Weaverville. And he gave me an option. He said, you don't have to go. If you stay here, you can be the junior high pastor if you want. All yours. You can have it. Or you can go to Weaverville and grow up.
Wow.
You decide what you want to do. And I was like, well, that's not. So I went home that day, honestly, and in my heart, I was like, I'm going to Weaverville. Because my dad, my spiritual dad said, that's what I needed. And for me, that was good enough. So it took a little bit of time with Leah, honestly, and it was a good moment for us. Like, we joke about it now, but it was a good moment to have to work some of that stuff out. We never had really any level of disagreement, and she's really, in the best way, really close to her mom and her dad. And so that was a big move for her, away, even though it's 45 minutes away, it was still away from family. And so, so I spent 3 years in Weaverville. Again, it was 2 years of suck and 1 year of amazing. And after that year of amazing, I was actually up for the senior pastor spot in Weaverville.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought that's what I wanted because I was like, God's next step.
Because you were youth pastoring up there.
I was a youth pastor up there, yeah. And it was God's next step for me is I'm going to be a leader. I had vision for the town and everything. And remember Danny again. I called Danny the architect of my life, but Danny came to Weaverville, and Steve Backlund, who was a pastor, he happened to be gone that Sunday. But I think he was gone on purpose. And he left me alone with Danny. And Danny, after church, said, hey, why don't you come to my hotel room? Let's have a chat. So I said, all right. So he's like, hey, I hear you want to be the senior pastor of Mountain Chapel. And I said, yeah, totally. That's what I want. And he said, why do you want that? And I told him, the best answer I had of why I wanted it was like 30 seconds long of this is what I want. And then he said, do you ever think you'll come home? And I said, oh yeah, I think I'll come home. And he said, why would you ever want to come home? And I gave him probably 3.5 minutes of this is why I'd come home and the vision of my father and helping establish the culture and wanting to go so back into the environment and feeling like that's the place I grew up and, people that I'm connected to are there. And it was like a long answer. And he looked at me and said, well, to me, it sounds like you're coming home.
Wow.
And in the hotel room. And I said, are you serious? And he said, yeah, go home and tell your wife you're coming home. You're not going to be the senior pastor of Mountain Chapel. I'll work it out for you. But you had a good reason to stay. You have a great reason to come home. I'll take care of it.
No
and I
way.
went home that day and I told Leah, Danny said I could come home, and she cried. She was like, let's go. She was pumped. And I look back and I'm like, Danny's a genius.
Dude, he's such a genius.
Yeah. But that happened in like the little hotel downtown.
The Victorian Inn.
The Victorian, yeah, with the uneven floors and all that, the old hotel. Yeah. That happened in one of those hotel rooms.
Gosh, dude, that's wild.
Yeah. And Danny, in that conversation, Danny reminded me, hey, your answer to stay was great, but it wasn't, it wasn't your heart. Your heart came out.
Yeah.
And
gosh, dude.
So he said, we're going to give it to the other guy. And I said, okay.
That other guy, was that other guy my brother-in-law?
Yeah.
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 Yeah. That's wild, dude. I can't even believe that.
Yeah. It was crazy. So that's what I did. So I went to Weaverville because one of my dads said to go. I came home because one of my dads said to come,
Yeah.
And I walked in. I walked into a revival group pastor job in first year with you, the first time we ever worked together.
Oh yeah.
Was there. And after my first revival group, again, I'd been a youth pastor to that point, full-time youth pastor vocationally for a little over 6 years. And then, and had some good experiences, but my first revival group in first year school of ministry in mod 4, I thought, this is what I'm built for.
Yeah. The school's amazing.
Yeah. And that changed everything.
Really?
Yeah. And it was 6 years of like pushing. I mean, really pushing. You know, I would sit under my table, my desk in Weaverville, and listen to Jeremy Riddle, Jesus, You're More Than a Friend, with the lights off.
Wow.
Go, Lord, get me out of here. I don't know what to do. I only have you. Because it was just so hard.
Wow. You know, there's this saying that people overestimate what they can do in a year and underestimate what they can do in 10 years. And I really think that that's true.
Yeah.
Is going back to like when we're young, we have all these dreams about and ideas about, you know, what we're going to accomplish and how cool it's going to be and how amazing life is going to be. And then when you start on that journey, it's so freaking tough.
Oh,
it's so hard that the only way that you actually do it really well and successfully is if you have a long-term plan, right? And people to help you. Otherwise, I don't know how you actually get to where you're really called to be and want to be, unless you have like these men in your life that are going like, nah, you're going to put on your big boy pants and you're going to go back into that conversation.
Yeah. I mean, these guys shape my life.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, like I will tell you that, you know, it's true now, but younger, I grew up with a great dad. Like, you know, he took me fishing and he did all this stuff. Right. But, very like, how could I say, like, if you would know maybe if you come from the culture, but very Hispanic, very scary, very all of that stuff, you know? So I didn't have a ton of like heart to heart moments, but I had a lot of love and value.
Like respect. Yeah.
Yeah. The respect level was really high. Like even now I joke around, but you know, I'm 45 years old and my dad can call me and be like, park your car, you're in trouble. And I'm like, that's sitting. It's in the garage. I'm not even going to drive it. You know what I mean? Like, you know, my dad don't even live in my town.
Yeah.
And he's like, don't drive it till I get there. And I'm like, all right, I'll walk. You know what I mean? Like, that's how it is. But between like, you know, these men, like you talked about, like those were my first heart to heart moment. Like school of ministry with your dad was, you know what I mean? It was challenging for me.
Yeah.
Because I had to be vulnerable and no one was doing that, you know, like in my life. And those were the challenging moments. And so these moments with Danny, all these places, you know, those guys really shaped me, you know, and looking back, you're like, oh, these are, you know, how would I say this? Soon after that, you look back and you're like, oh no, that was a Sunday afternoon.
Yeah.
But I'm like, no, that one conversation that was, you know, half an hour long.
Marked my life.
That one moment with Danny, that was literally, you know, 4 minutes, marked my life. And I think if that's what I try to remember, honestly, now is so many people come back and say, hey, that conversation you had with me or that thing you had with me. And I try to remember, especially because of what we do in school.
Yeah.
It might be a 4-minute conversation, but if I can listen to what the Lord's saying and try to follow the Holy Spirit in that, these are life-changing moments for people that, you know, could be the most amazing, you know, the most amazing kind of life-changing, you know, turning event for them if you would just lean into what the Lord's got.
You know, it's really interesting. I was on a phone call today, Zoom call, sorry. They're pretty much the same thing now at this point, with somebody from another country. And he's married. He's been in ministry for a long time and he's really, really struggling. They've had like some, you know, those seasons that are just really hard in life where nothing goes well. He's had that for like 5 years. And so today he's telling me all these issues that he's dealing with and all this stuff. And the whole time he's talking, I'm like, who's his friend? Like, who's this guy's community? Who's helping him? So I asked him, you know, rather than solving his problem, I just said, hey, like, dude, who are you doing life with? Who are you running with? Who's in your corner? He's like, I don't have anybody. And he had like a whole bunch of really good reasons why he didn't have anybody. You know, we moved from the city and and whatever. I was at Bethel for a long time. Then we moved to this other country. I don't want to say which one it is. Moved to this other country, and then we've been doing this ministry and we're doing this thing, and then my wife got sick, and the whole time I'm thinking like, because he never learned how to prioritize living inside a relationship, he's found himself at a place where he's all alone, trying to lead this ministry, trying to help his family get well emotionally and physically. And he literally can't do it, right? He's running out of bandwidth and running out of energy and running out of vision and running out. And to me, when I look at the benefit of what we've been in for so long, is that we've, as hard as it is, because we have to be honest about this, as hard as it is to do ministry with family, which that's a whole subject.
Yeah.
The flip side of that is we're family because of what we fought for. We're family because we've behaved like family.
Yeah.
And that has provided a structure for these other people literally to launch you into the thing that you feel like, man, this is what I was born to do. Even me, like with BraveCo, like I would never be at the spot in BraveCo if I didn't have Danny Soak, if I didn't have Bill, if I didn't have my dad, if I didn't have Mark Brooks, if I didn't have all of my brothers like you that are like, dude, we're 100% with you. Like I have the 100% with you of so many prominent people in my life because I did all those years of service and all those years of grinding and all those years. And it's like, I try to tell guys this all the time. Like the best thing that you can do for your life is to inject yourself into an environment and to serve and to make yourself indispensable and to develop a community of men. You know, no father's going to just run around and grab you as a son and then start to direct your life. It doesn't work like that. It only works like that one time. And that's when your dad, out of lust, gets your mom pregnant, right? And then now he's obligated, I'm joking, but he's like, okay, I had you, you know, now I'm going to direct your life. Once you get older, there's no dads running around going, you're my son now. Like, I'm going to claim you and I'm going to direct your life. It's the opposite. Like as a son, you submit yourself to these guys and to this community. And then from there, like it's up to you to initiate and to show up and to grind and to make a place in their life. And it's so much sacrifice at first, but it's everything once you get going.
Well, that submission, I think, is really hard for people now.
Yeah.
That the idea that I'm going to let someone else actually tell me what to do and I'm going to go do it.
Yeah.
That is not a popular kind of,
it's tough.
Like way to think now. Now it's, that, again, I understand, like I don't want to control anybody's life, right? But I mean, you've heard this from me lots, that Abraham and Isaac model is, that's life to me in there, that Isaac could have kicked the crap out of Abraham.
Yeah.
If he wanted. Isaac wasn't this little baby up a mountain. He was strong enough to carry the wood for his own sacrifice.
Wow.
He was, historically, he was probably in his 20s, mid 20s, somewhere in there, 17 to 27, somewhere in there. And Abraham was old. And Abraham had to, Isaac got on the altar because he wanted to. And that piece, I think we're missing a lot of when it comes to, sons and even fathers in that way. Because often I watch people, again, they have really good reasons. So don't misunderstand me, but because of the control, the fathers that they've had were tie you up dads.
Yeah.
Right. I'm going to submit you. They weren't, it wasn't you get to submit, is I'm going to submit you. And so fatherhood looks like a, UFC fight rather than a place where Isaac goes, what's the vision you have for my life? Oh, you want to kill me? That's what the Lord said to you? All right, I trust you. You can tie me up. I'll lay down for you. You sure this is going to work out? Okay. let's do that. Knowing full well, Isaac didn't have to. He didn't have to, they didn't have to lay down for that. And that's the piece when it comes to fathers and sons that I'm trying to, at least in school and the areas that I influence, I'm trying to get back there.
Yeah.
Of like, that's not control.
Yeah.
Abraham never controlled Isaac that way. He asked Isaac, as a father to respond to a vision. And I always love it that it's we talk about this, but it's a vision Isaac never heard. Abraham heard it. Abraham got the word from God. Isaac didn't. And I think often, I watch sons, especially, we do school a lot, and, I'm like, there's value in hearing the Lord for yourself. Like, that is true. There's also value in trusting that your moms and dads can hear the Lord for you.
Yeah.
And your response will often dictate the course of nations if we can respond well. And that for me is a big deal. And that, honestly, I feel like I do have a level of authority there only because I feel like I live that a little bit,
What do you, like, how did you teach that to your sons?
Oh, well, I think, okay, so I would say, I think for my sons, it starts when they're young, right? So trust is built when they're, growing and developing. It's, I feel really blessed to have the kids I have, and, you're probably similar, but, it's tough to start with a 20-year-old and go, lay down.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Unlearn everything you've learned.
Yeah, that's tough. So, for me, it was just a process of, I want to be connected to you, our hearts knitted together. So that for me is number one. You know what I mean? Like your yes to me comes out of that place of not punishment, not fear, not any of that. It comes out of a place of honor. And then I want to honor what you say to me, but even then it's challenging, but you try to, for me, I just try to build that. So, it's conversations on the bed with my 6-year-old, when they're 6, it's everything from how was your day to let's talk about that girl you like to, but we're having intimate connections, in those places. And then there's, I have 3 boys and a girl, and on the boy side, I'm like, but I'm raising men, so you're going to get a little bit of a hard dad on occasion like that. That probably is true. And my wife would say that maybe I'm too hard and she's right when
she's too soft.
Yeah. And I say she's too soft, and again, I was joking the other day. I'm like, you're right when you are. You know what I mean? And I just don't think you are. So, I think we're a good balance for each other, but in there, we're trying to create, obviously, kids that love the Lord and do all of those things. But for me, I think just growing up, how I grew up, I'm like, oh no, there's a level of attitude and respect and value that you're going to present to the family. I was joking. I can probably say this. I don't think he'll get that mad, but my oldest is 20. And he lives at my house and which is great. He can live there forever, until he gets married, I guess. But he has this habit of, he says okay, like when I tell him something, he says okay, but he doesn't say it. It doesn't come across kind when he says it. It's
like, okay.
Yeah, and he doesn't mean it mean.
Yeah.
It just doesn't work. Like his okay doesn't work. So I banned him. I'm like, if you say okay to me one more time, you're dead. I don't tell you. Like, I don't even know. And he's bigger than me.
It set you on fire.
Oh yeah. It's crazy now, like the Abraham and Isaac story relates, because I'm like, he's 6 foot something.
Yeah.
And I'm not.
No, you're not.
I'm definitely not. Yeah. And I hug him and I'm like, my ear is like at his chest, And he doesn't have to do what I say. Like, he's big enough. He beat me up.
Yeah.
But the value is there. That's my father is there. So and there's probably lots to go into that, but it doesn't start when you're 20. At least for me. And again, I think God's gracious. So if you have to start when you're 20, I think God's really gracious to fill it up and to fill those spaces. But and the kids are so different. The personalities are so different.
It's true.
You do the same thing with all of them, and I got 4, and you try the same, and you get 4 different.
So different, such different results. There's some kids that make you feel like a genius parent, and then there's other kids that make you realize you don't know anything.
Oh yeah, I love the parents too that have the first one, and the first one is like easy,
Yeah.
and they're like, "Look at what I did," and I'm like, "You didn't do any of that. I know you think you did, but you didn't."
Yeah.
And I hope your second one just ruined your life.
Yeah, it's
Like
true.
that's because you just try so hard with
I
everyone,
know,
and then
dude. Yeah, I'm doing kids round 2.
oh yeah,
Yeah. And kids round 2 is so humbling. It's so incredibly humbling because um, the first time around, everything's a surprise.
oh
You're
yeah,
like, oh, wow. And you don't really have a ton of tools, which is not always that good, but you've got the energy for it.
so funny
Round 2, you have more tools and less
and no
energy.
energy.
Yeah. And you're like, I know this goes quick, but dang, it lasts so long.
Oh yeah, I know I don't have round 2, thankfully.
Yeah.
Leah's like, "Do you want to adopt?" I'm like, "No, actually, I don't." I'm like, I would take a free kid. Like if the Lord did that, like honestly, if the Lord just said, "Here you go," I'd take a free kid, but
Yeah.
I'm not paying for an extra kid. Do you know what I mean? Like just so I can have one.
Bro,
That sounds like a lot.
somebody probably give you a free kid right now.
Yeah, but I'm just saying. So Leah would have kids forever. But
What do you
yeah,
feel like right now is the biggest challenge that you face as a leader in the world that you lead?
in the world that I lead,
Yeah.
I feel like the Lord still like feel like I'm still growing,
Yeah.
honestly, and like everyone says that, but I feel that
Mm-hmm.
it's flipping hard to grow at 45.
Dude, it's so hard.
Like when I was when I was a young 30-year-old leader, I'm like, yeah, this is what I'm supposed to be doing. At 45, I'm like, this sucks
Yeah.
to have to grow in these areas. Um, you know, gosh, my responsibility for church stuff is increasing a
Yeah.
bit and things are changing. And then, I'm getting more opportunity, I think, in some of these things. The hard part is when you feel like either you're supposed to say yes or your fathers are telling you to say yes and you don't want to.
Yeah.
That for me is always a challenge because there's insecurity built into I don't want to. Because typically I say yes to things I think I'm good at or things I
Yeah.
want to do. But probably the biggest challenge for me or one of the biggest, I don't know, there's probably lots, is the pace of capacity is growing.
Mm-hmm.
So that's harder to grow your capacity as you
Yeah.
get older, is often harder. And then the yeses to things that I know I'm supposed to do, but I don't naturally have an affinity toward is challenging because they push on insecurities in my life.
Yeah.
And that's harder now for me than it was, if I'm honest.
Yeah.
So
somewhere in my brain as well, when I think I had this idea that I'm going to get to a point where I can kind of just cruise. Like, right. Like I keep looking to get into a season that's really easy. And it's just like not a big deal, And I just, man, like I have a year, like 2019 was like a good year, killed a bunch of animals and like kids were doing amazing and marriage was blissful. And that's like the last one that I can remember. That was like,
that's the last one.
Where I wasn't
like,
personally being stretched like 9 ways.
No, I'm with you. Like we just had I'm not just I don't know all the years run together, but
yeah,
we've had challenging last few years because of Benny, as a family, and that affects every aspect of your life, right? It affects kids, the whole,
it's true,
everything, your marriage,
yeah.
And then what people probably don't know, but everyone will know now on the podcast is, Leah's spending every moment, in the best way possible, like with her mom, a couple years or a year or so before.
Yeah.
So there's lots of those challenging moments that are like, it's those things that you're like, oh, I'm so happy we get to give this.
Yeah.
It is so hard to give this.
Yeah.
And I think that continues in certain aspects of my life for sure. I'll give you one example. Probably, I don't know if you want one, but like I'm getting a little bit of a chance to preach more at church,
Oh yeah.
Which they tell me is good.
Yeah. You're a great preacher.
Yeah. Oddly enough, I don't think I'm a horrible preacher. Like I think I'm a decently good communicator. It stresses me out.
Yeah.
So it's not the thing that I would go, oh, please, I would love more of those things. No, I want to be clear. Like I want to run everything. Like if that's like that might be true,
Yeah.
but I just don't want to talk to anybody while I do it.
Yeah. You're
Do you
pretty
know?
introverted.
Yeah, I'm pretty introverted.
For the type of world that you lead and the job that you're in and the people that you're over, you're introverted.
Yeah.
And not in a bad way, but you're
No.
having to overcome that.
Yeah, I'm not a hermit, but I definitely am happy with my wife,
Yeah.
and my wife wants the kids there, so cool.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Yeah, cool. I want
Yeah.
them there too most times. But yeah, my dream vacation is a cabin on a lake with nobody.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, there's lots of guys like my dad would be one that eat, breathe, sleep preaching. He just can't wait, you know, and he can't wait to go to the next place and to, especially when he was a little bit younger, but even now, like my dad's a beast when it comes to that. And, and I would say like even Halo is like loves to preach and loves to prepare.
And they're good at it. Like,
they're so good
amazing
at it. Yeah.
But I even told, I'll get habit. I'm like, I need you to help me.
Yeah.
Like you're so good.
Yeah.
To be honest. So I think again, I don't think I'm horrible, but that if I'm, you know, I don't know if this helps anybody, but those moments, I get lots of good feedback. So don't misunderstand me. Like it feels nice to have people say nice things, but that pushes on insecurities for sure. Internally, not because and it's not because I think I'm bad. I think sometimes we think, you know, places of insecurity or places where you're asking yourself these honest questions about what am I doing only come from a place of like, well, I don't think I'm good at it, or I don't think I'm like, no, I think I'm pretty good at all that stuff. It's just I have to gear up for it in a way that I don't when I am in school or when I'm doing other things. And
I think that if we don't allow ourselves to be stretched, then you pretty much just like, that's the best you're ever going to be in that area.
Yeah.
And I think that's often what I remind myself when I'm being stretched is like, man, I either have to be okay with settling right where I'm at, or I have to be okay with the pain of growing and the pain of getting better. Mm-hmm. And I guess as long as the pain of growing is an area that you want to grow at, right?
Yeah, or you're supposed to grow at.
Yeah.
I mean, for me, I think it's a supposed to.
Yeah.
And to be honest, when you're in the middle of it, like sometimes it feels great. So, you know, you preach 4 times on a Sunday, and there's 4 places in every message, you know, or there's a place in every message probably out of 4 where you're like, man, this feels awesome.
Yeah, I did great.
But that week, for me, leading up to that is a little bit more challenging than my normal week. You know, so there's that for school. Kid stuff is hard. If I'm not, you know, I don't know. Kid stuff feels hard.
What's hard for you with kids? And you don't like have to expose
no,
like
no,
your kids or whatever.
I'm pretty open, bro. Like, no, my kids are all great. Like, I feel like we are in an amazing season as a family, but it's a transition space for me. So my oldest is 20. I have my second who's 18, you know, my little girl's, you know, 15, and, you know, my youngest is 13. And those are like big transition ages.
Yeah, they are.
And, you know, a lot of firsts in there, you know, it's the first girlfriend. It's the first, you know, like serious, I like this person. It's the, you know, it's what are you going to do with your life, you know, at 18 and 20 years old. It's, you know, dang, the youngest is not as young as he used to be. And, you know, you see,
and she's going to get a boyfriend.
Yeah. The 15-year-old. Yeah. And again, she's going to, I don't know if she'll ever see this, but like she likes a boy and the boy likes her. Like that's all supposed to happen.
Yeah.
And I know it's supposed to happen. And when she's little, you're like, hey, this is going to happen. You just don't want it to.
You know what I used to tell my boys all the time? So I tell my boys, Elijah and Evan, like if you marry a girl and you don't like your marriage, that's on you.
Yeah.
Because like we have taught you and trained you and like you have me here, right? Like I'm here to help you make that decision if you want help. But like if you get married and you hate your life, that's on you. Which I know sounds harsh, right? But that's true, like though. That's how I would feel, right? With my daughter, I'm like, if you marry someone and you hate your life, I'm going to be in there fixing that thing forever.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's what it feels like.
Yeah.
Like my boys, I'm like, you're on your own, you know, like you made that bed, go lay in it. My daughter, I'm like, oh, frick, dude, please don't choose him. Please, please, please don't, you know?
Yeah.
Like,
totally.
because it's going to be my problem.
Oh, bro. I look, honestly, I look back and I'm like, I asked to marry Leah when she was 18. I don't know how Bill said yes to that.
I don't know either, dude.
To be
It's
honest.
that old school parenting.
Yeah, like it was beautiful and amazing. But my daughter's 15 and I'm like, no, never. And hopefully, man, Leah's going to kill me, but whatever. Like she likes a boy and the boy's really great. Like honestly,
Yeah.
they're not like dating.
Yeah.
They like each other. And
We won't tell anybody.
no, well, she's like, can the boy come to the house? And Leah's like, yes. And I'm like, I know what the right answer is. And it has nothing to do with the boy. Like
the right answer is, does he want to work?
Yeah. Yeah. But
what's he good at?
Yeah. And honestly, these are just challenging spaces for me. Like just as a dad trying to figure it out, I know what I want to do, but what I want to do, honestly, as a father isn't always the right answer.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, you're wise enough and you have good people around you, like we talked about. So I'm getting wisdom and I'm like, oh, here's what I want, but that's not what I should do. And I think that's hard for me, knowing that I can't, I'm in that space, I think, where you're past this space. So you'll be able to tell me better. You've done everything you can do. And now you have to trust your kids to do amazing. And that, I think that's harder than I thought it was going to be.
Well, and you're never done.
Right.
That's the reality, right? Yeah. Is, again, I keep thinking I'm getting to a spot where like, ooh, I'm going to be done. Ooh, I'm going to cruise. Oh, I'm going to be. Yeah. It's like, dude, my oldest is 24 years old. He's been married for 3 years now. And I'm not done. He still needs me. He still needs input and advice. And I'm going to be a grandpa there. And my other kids, they're like making these big life decisions as well. Evan's in first year and loving it. It's transforming his life, and which is amazing. My daughter works at the church, and it's like, dude, their problems are still my problems, and because they're my kids. And so, man, it's being a parent is full on, and the pressure, I think just the weight of carrying your kids' burdens and helping them is real, and it's challenging, and it's tough.
I mean, I don't want to make it more than it is. I feel like I'm not careful. I go, my life's amazing. I definitely pray a lot.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like you pray a lot.
Yeah.
But honestly, my life feels like, wow, I feel so blessed. Mm-hmm. And then often scared all the same. I don't know if that makes sense to anybody.
It does. Someone said the other day, like, if you're in the middle of chasing after your dreams, going after what you feel called to, and you don't feel like you know what you're doing, welcome to the club. Because like I was listening to this guy who's a multimillionaire. He's like, welcome to the club. Like all of us feel the same way. And it really does. Like, I think until like, I would say like Bill probably feels like he knows what he's doing at this point. Maybe my dad sometimes, but it's like so much of life for me. And everyone that I know, honestly, at my age and where we're at, everyone I know is going, am I doing this right? Like, do I know what I'm doing? Is it supposed to be this hard? And really learning like how to enjoy that, the journey and the process. But again, back to the very beginning is like, we're so blessed because we've invested 20 something years of our life into a family, into community. And that's the safety net that you and I live in. The safety net that you and I live in is that we have dads that are dreaming with us and for us.
Yeah, that is true.
And so it's really hard for you. Like if you and I screw it up, we're working hard to screw it up.
Oh yeah. Because
we have these guys that are like, they're wanting to propel us forward. They're wanting to give us the secrets. They're wanting to give us time. But I think what I want to highlight today for men is like, that's not something that, like, I know a lot of kids, a lot of guys that could have had the same thing that I have, but they didn't serve. And it's not about working at the church. It's about serving the men in your life and becoming indispensable to the men in your life, showing up. And long before I ever was serving at Bethel Church, I was mowing, my friend Keith Alvord's lawn, who was a spiritual father of mine, and splitting his firewood for him and showing up. And because of that, he became a spiritual father in my life. And I remember him saying one day, I was like 16 and my dad had left to go to Bethel. And I just instinctively started hanging out with Keith, going over his house. He was probably 15 years older than me, splitting his firewood. And one day he stops and says, "Why are you so nice? Like, why are you over here?" I was like 3 days a week. I'd be over there mowing his lawn, splitting his wood. I was like, I don't know. I just like to be around you. I didn't put it together till I was older. Like, I was looking for a father. I was looking for a touch point every single day because my dad was in Reading and I was still in Weaverville.
Wow.
And it was that mentality, right? It was that mentality that my dad had instilled in me when I was young. Like, come do what I'm doing, come sacrifice, come be a part. And out of that, you get connection and community. And like, if that's the secret, like when guys are looking at you and looking at me and looking at all these other men at Bethel, kind of coming up, it's like, that's the secret. The secret isn't my last name. It's not in who you married. It's in the posture that we've taken and the road that we've been walking on for such a long time. The benefit of that is you get grafted in to the purpose and destiny of all these other people.
Yeah.
And it's something you have to fight for all the time.
Totally. And we have to, I think the fight too is with fathers, yes, and then with each other.
Yeah.
I think is a fight.
Yeah.
Like I joke with you, I mean, you've heard me say it before, but like I've never, when you're a great counselor, we joke like you're a good counselor. I think I'm a good pastor. So,
Yeah.
but I don't always need pastoring. Sometimes I need counseling. You know what I mean? So, but I always joke, like I go see Jay and I've never been there where it's not been my fault. Like something hasn't been my fault.
You were asking for help and I was helping.
Yeah.
you.
Like I'm going in there because I'm like, hey, me and Leah got into it or something happened or my kids. And honestly, I don't think haven't been one time where I haven't been in there. And the first few times I was like, what the heck happened? But you keep going back because hey, that guy has what I need.
Yeah.
And it's going to probably be hard. And I realized that, I'm, like you said, I'm in the spot I'm in probably because of me. Like that's the reality, probably because of me. So I think there's a spot in there too. We talk about fathers and sons or, moms and dads. There's a spot where we got to fight for our connection with, with brothers to go, actually, we're going to do this. We're going to do this together. And so, my heart would be like, I don't plan to go anywhere for a while. I hope you don't plan to go anywhere for a while. And we're going to figure out how we're going to make this work together, pulling on each other's strengths and growing together and trying to figure it out.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
It's true.
And not be isolated when we have, challenges or difficulty or, I don't know. I thought about that because I'm like, oh yeah, that is something that I have to purposely do. Like it's not natural in me to go, I'm going to go see Jay and go get my butt handed to me for a little bit.
Yeah.
But I need a Jay in my life, and then, then even with my kids, like, I'm like, oh, you need to go see that guy because that guy's got what you need. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. There's so much value in being able to see
it's everything.
People next to you and go, man, you have something I want.
Yeah. It's everything. And to me, that's the big message is like, man, if you're grafted into a community that you're serving that loves you, I mean, inside of that community is everything that you need to thrive. And that's your investment is like part of the inheritance that your kids get as well. And it's phenomenal. So Gabe, thank you so much, man.
Thanks
for coming on here and just for being a brother and showing up. And I love running with you all the time. I love doing what we do. So
I love it. Thank you so much.
Yeah, I appreciate you, man.
It was helpful or something. I don't
know. Dude, it's
but,
inspiring.
But,
BraveCo men, this week, the question I want you to ask yourself is, who are the men that I'm serving and where's the community that I'm building and running with? And I think if you really dive down and answer that question, like that's the thing that you really have to nail down. And if the answer is nobody, then you know what your work is, right? Like you know that your homework is to start to dive into that community, into those men that you can pour your life into and make their life greater and better. And in return, you get the gift that service brings. You get the gift that being in connection and community with great men brings. And so it's the inheritance. It's the blessing. It's that stuff. So BraveCo men, have a great week. We will see you next week. Hey guys, thanks so much for listening to the BraveCo podcast. If you like this podcast, would you please rate it, review it, leave us a great comment. And if you like this episode in particular, share it with your friends and family. That helps us to spread the word. Guys, stay brave. We'll see you next week.